Okay, so here we go. Star Wars for Daddies, Generation Space Time is the working title. Um, we've been talking about this for a long time. We started filming last summer, and I got to break the bad news to you. I stopped paying for my Zoom account, and I lost the first couple of videos. So I'm going to see whether I can get them back, but my guess is that maybe I can't. So this might have to be our quasi first one. I have the last one we did, which we can kind of like through space time make our second one, and we can make this the introductory one. All right.
Yeah.
So that's what I got to say so
All
far.
right.
How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. It's well, let's just jump straight into this. The
Straight
show,
into it.
how do
Well,
you feel?
what are we here to talk about today? What are we watching? We're watching Halo, kind of, you know,
The second season? Yeah,
second
yeah.
season together, right? We together apart at the same like weekly. And we recently watched Back to the Future.
Oh yeah, that was a good movie.
And
Very good
and I
movie.
must say I am interested to go and see Dune 2 at the theaters.
Hmm.
And yeah, I guess that's more or less where what the agenda might be for today. So where do you
Yeah,
want?
it's Oh, we also this isn't exactly recent-ish, but we did watch that new Wonka movie. That was a very good movie as well. It wasn't exactly sci-fi, but it was a
Right. It wasn't exactly sci-fi. And just for all those viewers who haven't seen the videos that are now lost and never really got posted, uh, uh, the thing that really inspired this podcast idea is that, I am of the generation that, went to see Star Wars, the original Star Wars in the theaters, you know, was so excited that they made Star Wars the second movie and the third movie, and was just at like the right age and was captivated by, I'm of the generation Luke, kind of. And
hmm.
and then there was more movies, and some of them I wasn't as interested in, and then we watched the third movies. But then at some point you sort of explained to me or made me realize that all of the like cartoons that you've been watching are actually fully part of the whole lore and universe. And now that Disney's come out with you know um all these
Tons of shows, like touching on
great shows, whether it's Mandalorian or
the
like
Ahsoka series
Ahsoka series.
or Boba Fett, or is it? I
Yeah,
think
Boba
so.
Fett was just a short one, and
Yeah,
or
or yeah, or not, there was also the Kenobi series, but also there was that
Andor,
other series,
Andor, which is
Andor, right, right, kind
anyways,
of like a
that all those are like um it's all part of a timeline, but they're going back and forth, and you realize
mhm.
you jumped a lot of time, but there's a lot of stories and things like that. And yeah, like Boba Fett, when I watched that, whatever that was, the second or the third movie, uh Boba Fett is gone, right? But who would have thought that like 40 years later Boba Fett comes
Comes,
cuts way out of the hole and all the rest of it. And so to me, that's like this space-time part of our podcast here.
yeah,
So interesting. Yeah.
yeah,
So I just wanted to give a quick background there.
yeah.
And,
It's interesting. You grew up basically with Luke and Leia and those like the main cast, and you also saw like the prequels and then the sequels.
right.
And for me, I kind of like, I don't think I was born, or like I don't think the Clone Wars happened exactly like I probably would have watched it, but I still like was able to watch it. And I though like the Clone Wars to me is like what really got me into it because of like all the unique characters and like interesting storylines and all that. And like, and it's amazing to see that all becoming live action now, and like to more like like hardened people who are like only the movies count. It's or like the live action stuff. It's nice to see that them finally getting the recognition that they deserve.
Right. Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Well, and again, for all of our viewers, I'm Kevin, and
And
you're
I'm Leo.
and you're Leo. Okay. Good to see. Well, um, cool. Well, you wanna talk Halo? That was the season two, the
Episode 6.
six,
I think it
some
was.
something like that. They had just the previous episode, they had just were basically escaping from Reach, and this basically dealt with the aftermath of Reach getting destroyed, right?
Okay. Yes. So okay. So it seems that this is that we episode we watched was episode 5. Episode 5.
Okay, episode 5.
So we together we watched and talked a bit, I think, about episode 1 and 2,
Right.
and then 3, 4, and 5 is kind of this. So so 3, 4, and 5. In 3, they're talking stuff, and then more talking, and then a bit of fighting, and then Reach gets attacked. 4 is the really cool episode that they said that they spent like a major part of their budget on for the battle, which was cool, really cool. And then 5. Actually, hang on, I'm just gonna put on my headset because
Yeah.
people are doing some stuff. Hang on. So and then 5 came around, and I gotta. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, all good.
Okay. And I gotta talk about 5. So in episode 5, the beginning part, they're fighting still on Reach, and there's that really cool scene to me. Look, where that like where the massive like brute guy, like
Right.
the
Yeah,
guy
yeah.
with the big hammer, and like
Yeah.
that was really cool. And a lot of people have criticized this kind of part of the show where like the elites are kind of a bit weird, because like they'll just charge you, like, or not you, but like in the show they kind of just charge the people and kind of like act brutish, which is weird because in the lore and also the games, elites are like more like sidestepping and like moving, like are kind of the guys who like aren't just charging headlong for no reason. Those are more of the brutish guys,
Right.
or brutes, while the elites are more like kind of like quick and like not hit and run, but like they'll get in a fight, but they're kind of not exactly like just straight charging unless they're like equipped for it. So it's kind of weird to see in the show previously them just charging, but it is nice to see them now, with the brute actually acting like a brute. And then the issue crops up of them just leaving Reach.
Right. Well, I'll pause you for a second, and I just
Yeah.
want to say that for some context, I'm not a gamer,
Right.
and a video gamer, and so I'm watching Halo like fully as a movie. I'm curious how it relates, and I was curious about what to expect when I first watched season 1 versus the video game. But a big part of the way that you're watching it is, like as if you'd read a book and then saw the movie, played the video games, multiple video games, including something called what? Escape from Reach?
Halo,
The Fall of Reach?
Halo Reach. Yeah, and
Halo
that
Reach.
chronicles the entirety of what happens with Reach when it gets intact.
Right. So this whole kind of series, this second series or whatever, all the stuff that's happening around Reach is like fully baked into, an important part of the video game and that sort of stuff, right? So you're really curious how they treat it and all that, right?
Yeah, and I've seen how they've treated it so far. So to give it a little context, in the game Halo Reach, missions have like at the beginning of the missions they'll have like time stamps of like when what time this is set. So in Halo Reach, the planet takes about like somewhere around a month, maybe a bit more, a bit less, to fall. Basically, like they're giving it their all and they're fighting as hard as they can. A lot of sacrifices that in the end result in the planet getting destroyed. But because of it and certain other situations, it sets up for Captain Keyes, the guy with the pipe at the end of I think episode 4 that just dies. He's supposed to go with Master Chief and his ship called the Pill of Autumn, and they find one of the Halos, Halo 4.
Ah,
So they killed Captain Keyes off, and then not only that, but the fall of Reach has like been like happening for like a day, and in episode 5 they just leave, and then they don't talk about Reach at all. So that's, to me, that's kind of like if in Star Wars, you know how in the like maybe let's say the first battle of the Death, like the first Death Star battle.
right.
I want you to imagine this. I want you to imagine all the ships coming in, all the rebels and all the guys trying to, destroy the first Death Star. And then within 1 hour, or maybe the real battle was longer, but let's say it was like for like several days. Let's say on the first day they're fighting, and they're losing a lot of ships, and then the main group of rebels, like Luke, Leia, and stuff, just leave.
Right.
That would be, wouldn't you feel that like that would be a bit weird? Like if they remade Star Wars, the original trilogy, and then in the movie that they destroy the first Death Star, they just leave.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's kind of what it's like. So, in episode 4, there's that big battles all around. It's great, except for the fact that none of them fight in armor, which is really weird. Like, really weird, because that's kind of what we want to see more of, that a lot of people have been complaining about in the show. Like, you like it how there's some fighting and also a lot of talking. To me, I know the original game is like 80% fighting, something like that, and 20% talk. Like there's some talking, but it's a lot of fighting as well. So them kind of just fighting out of armor, still getting some cool kills and stuff, but them just doing that. And then the next episode, they just leave the planet.
Right.
That's kind of anticlimactic in a big way.
Right. that battle was way bigger kind of, and should have. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's like that. The battle in the original game was like a month, not exactly a full month, but like a month of, like them having ground battles and then destroying ships, and then the Covenant destroying a lot of ground, and then them doing sacrifice to destroy this big ship that's sending a ton of troops in, and then a whole fleet comes in, and it's this whole thing. But this, they bomb some places on Reach, probably important, but they just bomb it, and then the military just takes all their important stuff and leaves, which is weird, like really weird. They take their armor for some reason, which in the game, I think it's like canonically their armor is expensive as like a full warship.
Right.
So there's assets, but like they just leave the Spartan twos.
Right. I mean, every time somebody interprets a movie, right? In fact, I just heard that Apple is going to make a series of Neuromancer, right? And Neuromancer was a book that I read not right when it came out, but not far after, and in a way kind of was, it didn't really relate to like anyways, it's like a super popular and awesome sci-fi, right? I gave you that book a little while ago, and it's a little bit maybe like the Matrix kind of aspects of it, but basically was predicting aspects of like online culture, invented the word cyberspace, all that sort of stuff. Anyways, and I read William Gibson talking about it, and he said basically like, look, folks, I'm not going to answer every question that comes along because you guys are just going to have too many questions. Bottom line is, I wrote a book. Nothing is going to be the same way as you imagined it in your brain when you read it. Somebody's taking that as the basis and they're making their own story. And I guess that's, similar to this, in a way, right? Like somebody wants, the way the video game works and stuff, you can never, you could watch Twitch basically if you want to get a note for note.
You're right. Yeah, you're right. Like I wasn't exactly expecting them to do one for one. There's plenty of room in a story to make deviations and change stuff. But like, it's have you ever heard of the movie World War Z?
I have, yeah.
Okay, so I've kind of watched the movie, and like, yeah, it's a good movie. And I've also watched the videos of people talking about it, and they say that basically the movie comparing to the original book is nothing alike, and it's basically just the title that they kept. So
Right.
Halo, this show, it's weird because there's some difference, there's some similarities and differences, and they're both great, but there's so many differences that they make in such weird ways that it's kind of confusing to me. Like Quan, for example, the subplot of Quan and her whole story and the rubble, and that it's kind of weird because it's not exactly too related in a sense to the original series. Like, it's kind of weird that like they made a difference that most humans in this series um aren't able to access forerunner technology, but like some key ones versus in the original games where most humans were able to do it. So
Right.
I can deal with that difference, understandable. But then they like just leave reach after one episode, even though they should be fighting for that tooth and nails. That's
Right.
really weird. They just leave it like we don't even know if it's fully destroyed. There could be still resistance and them still blasting it. There are also some cool stuff, like how I think at the so you fully watched episode 5,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So you kind of see at the end where like the Spartan 2, I'm forgetting
Right,
her
yeah,
name.
that was, I mean, yeah, because the very end, those are all Spartan twos, right? Like a great big Spartan.
All
Or
those the guys who are like wearing the kind of weird like helmet, like armor with the helmet. There's like
yeah.
mostly glass on. So those guys are actually called Spartan 3s.
Oh,
They're
Spartan.
different.
Okay.
So like I found it interesting in the how they showed them, because how they showed them, it was kind of like, you may not exactly remember. Do you remember in the sequel, prequel trilogy, where like the clone army kind of came in, where like they're like rows and rows of
Right.
guys
Yeah.
wearing what? That's kind of what it reminded me of the Spartan 3s. So, little context: Spartan 2s are children that were augmented and trained throughout their lives after being kidnapped and given armor, and they're
Like,
like,
you mean
sorry.
Chief is
Yeah,
a
yeah. He's a Spartan too. So those guys are above and beyond, like ultra powerful. They can go toe to toe with an elite, even out of armor. Usually in armor, preferably, which I'd really like to see. But they could go toe to toe against an elite. Um, and then Spartan 3s, meanwhile, were less like fully augmented warriors from children and more like adults that they took with our probably pre-existing training or just volunteers and stuff, and gave them some augmentations, and also this armor called SBI armor, which is what they're wearing, which is called semi-powered infiltration armor. So these guys aren't exactly fully like going toe to toe against an elite. They're kind of more like a bit more of sending in and destroying like a power plant or something, or like causing key damages to locations so that the UNSC can have a bit more breathing room. So like I'm excited to see where they go with these guys, but I'm also a bit worried because I've seen what my excitement in what they're going to do with the show next kind of leads to. So I'm excited that they're bringing in the Spartan 3s, because these guys, they're they're not exactly expendable, but the UNSC is willing to send a lot of them to destroy a major important thing,
maybe
and
the
most
support
of
that
them may die.
they're kind of like the support they need right now if they're getting attacked a lot.
Yeah, they're like, they probably can't go to toe to toe with an elite, but in armor, and like 2 of them, 3 of them with good training, good stuff, they could take out elites, grunts, jackals, like brutes. Like, oh, they're not exactly mass producible, but they can make a number of them, and they can be thrown at a problem. And if a lot of them die, but that problem is solved, then it's a worth sacrifice. So like, I'm excited to see what they're gonna do with them, but I'm kind of worried because of what they've done with the show already. So
There you go, eh?
yeah, the show is interesting things with like, like the Master Chief, showing his face a lot, which is to me a bit weird. They also
I
have
mean,
an issue where
I think that's probably why they did it. They probably wanted, I guess they were worried that folks like me needed to bond with the human side of these folks rather than just the machine-esque armor and helmets and stuff.
yeah, which is weird because me, I can in the original Halo series, we don't see the Master Chief without armor, basically. Like when it's kind of a joke where like whenever he takes off his helmet, it'll
Yeah.
be angled so you can't see his face. So it's
Uh,
like, and then there was this other funny scene in the first game where people use their like a modded camera to see what he looks like when he removes his helmet. And so he removes his helmet, and then it underneath that helmet is another helmet. So like, it's kind of a joke, that
yeah.
Master Chief always wears helmet even under his helmet.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see him.
Interesting. There's a Mandalorian kind of connection in that way, eh?
Yeah, but like with the Mandalorian, you could he doesn't, he barely ever takes off his helmet, but you can still grow with him as a character. And even fully armored, Master Chief, while he's a super soldier and like a big old fighter and stuff, he does have an amount of humor that like shows, and emotions as well. So like, once in a while he'll like crack a dry joke or something, or like make like kind of comedic thing. Like at one point in the games, like he asked the commander, like, "Sir, permission to leave like the space station." And the commander asks, like, "For what purpose?" And he's like, telling me stuff, trying to figure out this battle. And then the Master Chief says, "To give the Covenant back their bomb," because the Covenant had put a bomb there. And he's like, "Granted, go ahead." And like, he just jumps out of an airlock onto like this big Covenant ship and throws the bomb and escapes. And it's kind of funny. Or like sometimes he'll crack, a dry joke. Like the same commander later on wanted to say, like, you could be promoted, son. And like he says, like something along the lines of, "I could, sir, but the admiral doesn't exactly have the same weight to it as the chief." So
Right.
like, and then he also has, not exactly crying scenes, but like he sometimes in the newest game he comforts this guy who like is his wit's end, because like he's like, "We lost everything. What are we gonna do? I can't deal with this anymore." It's like, even as soldiers, we're still human. We still make mistakes, and we're gonna do this. So there's still scenes where even with his armor fully on, you can see this human side of him.
Right.
And that's kind of a bit what we see with the Chief, sort of, but like not the way that to me should be happening. Like he's just kind of like an asshole in this, like
Yeah, he's
in the
pretty.
game, the
Oh,
show,
yeah, in the
like
show he's pretty hot.
not in the games exactly, but like in the show, like he's like to that Spartan that fell off
Yeah.
a cliff. He's like, "Get up."
Yeah, you got to keep fighting, and she's like, "No, I think I'm gonna retire." Like.
Yeah, or like the part where like he loses one of his teammates that like, just to make sure you're aware, he grew up with as a child and trained with to be this team.
Right.
And like he loses one, he's like, "It's not my friend, it's a body."
Right.
And like he doesn't basically even, he has to be forced basically to go to his friend's funeral by Quan, who's a
Yeah.
weird character to me, but like he's just like, don't care.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's weird to me that like he just is this
Uh,
completely alien character.
yeah. Well, it's we'll see what they, whether they set him up for personal growth or not, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
In what, like
well,
8 episodes fully, and like we're 5 episodes in, it's like,
Yeah.
Very weird.
Um, so yeah, unfortunately, we lost a few of our pre-episodes. We did watch, and I forgot, we also watched over the last couple of months. So we watched recently um, Back to the Future,
Mhm.
right? Which is a kind of a sci-fi, obviously dealing with time travel and that stuff.
Yeah.
But like you know, I, I in a way, I came up with this idea of like steampunk sci-fi sort of,
Yeah.
but
Like with
the
like
one
real steel and stuff.
right. That's what I was going to say is that the one that really made me think of it was that one like a month ago when we watched Real Steel, and what was so interesting about that movie, which I thought was a great movie,
Yeah.
especially like your brothers is sort of that age, so it was a good fit for him. But it's so for me it really reminded me a bit of like Rock'em Sock'em Robots, right? When I was a
Mhm.
kid, which was like so low tech, but such a cool toy. And so this
Yeah.
is like taking technology to make these like real life Rock'em Sock'em robots, so I could really identify with it. But at the same time, it was like the movie's set in the future, not like I think it's set more or less today or something. I can't remember,
Yeah.
25 or something. But the only thing that's really in the future are these robots and the tech around them. And the thing that really jumped out at me about that movie, which was made in like 2007 or 8 or something,
Yeah. The movie's set in 2020. Like,
20, right?
yeah.
But the thing that really amazed me is that the kind of and there's a little bit of Rocky in the movie, and like the bad guy robot in the movie has like AI and can kind of learn things. But it's so funny because like in this day and age, right? AI is everywhere, and that's all people are chat GPTing about and whatnot. And yet it was like really like it's almost laughable AI today. But anyway,
Right.
just the movie is just interesting because the only thing that's set in the future is this robot tech. They didn't bother to change anything.
Right. Like the only thing that they did basically was like set up, it's the normal world, but the only difference is that like the only difference is that like they set up some time thing so that like it can, okay, so they built all this new stuff just for the robots, but that's it. Like, and it's a
Right.
really amazing movie because like it's a it's basically our world if they added in machines, and like the machines basically are only for like fighting, nothing else. It's not for war, it's not for like taking over jobs and stuff. It's just for fighting, and like that's cool.
And so I just thought that it was interesting because it kind of had this sort of steampunk aspect to it. It's not exactly that, and I don't know how people define steampunk, but like
Mm.
the idea that we're looking at something in the future, and you just have to accept to watch the movie that these things are futuristic, but everything else is we're not going to push your boundaries too hard. But
Yeah.
anyways,
So yeah.
so yeah, but I thought that was a good movie. And
We
back
also
to
watched Creator,
sorry.
the Creator as well.
Right? Yeah,
Yeah, that was good.
that was a little while ago. That was a definitely a good movie.
Yeah.
And yeah, well, so look, maybe we can figure out how to get together in this month and go see Dune. I don't know if you
Hmm.
did you watch the first? You saw the first Dune?
I've seen the first one, yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, like we
I like
should.
I like the first one. I think I
Yeah.
rewatch it because it was I didn't know the
Hmm.
story and what was happening, so
Yeah.
thought it was good.
All right.
All right. Well, maybe for today we'll end our sort of our rechristened first episode here, and send in your questions. Don't hesitate. We're looking for guests, and here's to sci-fi and all its variations. Right.
Yeah. All right.
Righty. Well, live long and prosper, my friends. Okay.
Sick.
Take care.